Okay, so for today, we're gonna look at Minio again. Um, in the previous video that I did about Minio, which is basically just a run through and how to get started, that was done using Docker. So it was a containerized version of Minio. Today, what we're going to look at is a documentation for how to just run it inside a virtual machine. For the purposes of this video, this is going to be Minio install with Alpine Linux as the base. Alpine is a very lightweight Linux distribution. It's often used as the basis for a lot of Docker containers. So a lot of the containers that you'll see in Docker Hub, a lot of them will have like different bases, and Alpine is one of the most common bases because it's extremely light install. I did a video a couple years ago about just getting started and like putting a LAMP stack together using Alpine, and it's a fraction the size of most other operating systems. The caveat to that is that it doesn't have a lot of the same services. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the Minio website. So here we are in the documentation. One thing that's interesting about Minio, it's been has rapid growth, so there's a lot of new things coming out, which means they're constantly updating their documentation. If you view this page, which is documentation for how to install Minio high performance object storage, you'll notice that some things are a little bit different. So first they have how do you get and how do you install. This is to install the binary. Alpine uses what's called the APK package manager. So it's neither RPM or Deb. So it's not one of the two most popular distributions like Red Hat or Debian Ubuntu. So you have to follow the steps inside the binary. And it just basically says you go through and you launch the server, and all of this stuff will come down for you. And it really is that easy. The thing here is the way they suggest to do it in this is that the object store will auto start every time you reboot the server. So if you just follow this, it'll get you up and running. You'll get started. It's really quick, and I'm going to demo in just a sec. The other piece of documentation that I saw actually is probably a little bit better in terms of deploying Minio on a production system, because what they do is they actually point you to creating a systemd service file. The systemd service file means that Minio would run as a service that the system would then want to restart, and they actually give a really good overview of how to create the service file and where to put it in etc systemd system. The problem with this method for the purposes of this video, and we'll see right now, is Alpine doesn't have systemd. So if SSH as root to this friend install, so first time logging in, okay, we can go to where they point us to, and we can look inside the etc bin. And you see here where the documentation says go to etc systemd. In Alpine, there is no systemd folder. And that's because Alpine is so light that it doesn't have systemd. It uses its own init.d or a way of bringing itself up. It's technically the Linux kernel with BusyBox, which is like a very simple utility for managing Alpine. And if you want to see how light it is, we can see it doesn't even have H. Okay, so if we look at our Alpine terminal, make this a bit bigger, make the text bigger, but if we look here, you'll notice that our root folder, we're only using less than 500 megabytes of space. So the total install size, this isn't the RAM, this is the total use of the system. If we do apk add htop and we install htop, and we can see, yeah, we're using a total of 63 megs of RAM. And that's out of a whopping total of 724. So when people say they need 32 or 64 gigs of RAM to do computing, not necessarily. Let's go through the steps and we'll set up Minio. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of a hack. We're going to hack kind of the setup so that Minio is going to run. It's going to behave as a something that runs on boot. But what we're actually going to do is we're going to make it so that Minio always boots on restart. So first, let's just copy this line by line. So we're just going to do Control-C, go over to our terminal, Control-Shift-V. We're going to use wget. We're going to connect. We're going to download Minio. Okay, cool. Minio is saved. We're going to go back to our home directory. We're going to make a directory to store the Minio data. We're going to call this Minio data. Okay. And one thing that I did kind of wrong is I downloaded that Minio file to the Etsy folder, which is not good. So we're going to move it from Etsy, Minio. We're going to say go here to this folder. So now we got the Minio. Cool. Next one, cmod plus x. This command right here makes the Minio binary an executable file. So we're going to do that. Chmod plus x Minio. And because we're running everything as root, which is okay to do at setup, for Alpine, you don't want to make a habit of it, especially if you're interacting with this over a remote network. And we're going to move Minio to the user local bin. Okay, what that does is it makes it so that no matter where we are in the system, Minio is gonna be there. It's gonna be accessible. Okay. Now, so we made a directory. Now we just got to run this bring up command. Okay. Copy that. Got to run this, which hopefully will start the Minio instance. And there we go. Now we can try to verify that this is working. So we just go to the IP address of the server. Oops, sorry, forgot the port number. Oh, the console's at. Sorry about that. 0. It wants to do an SSL. Okay, we gotta tell it to do HTTP. Okay, so we didn't have SSL certification, that's why it throws the error. Obviously, best practice is to add the SSL cert, but for now, we're not. But now we can see that Minio is up and running on the remote server. Okay, and we can see that this is indeed running the right IP address. So log in. Okay, and now we can get started. We can make our bucket. I can say test bucket, create bucket, and then at this point we can change the access policy if we wanted. If we want to make it a public one, which means that links can be available all the time, or a private one, which means if you link from file, it'll be maybe just available for like 5 days or 7 days or something. But we have everything working. Go to the object browser. In here, we can start uploading files. So we can upload, say, just upload this picture here. It uploaded, and in the latest version of the browser, you can also do things like preview. You can actually see it there in the Minio browser. So this is all functionally working. Okay, cool. What happens when I close it? Okay, it's closed. At this point, we should say unable to connect because we closed it. So what we're going to do, and to make sure that this is persistent, is we're going to kind of hack the way they're doing it here. So again, best practice, and if you're not using Alpine, best practice would be to follow this documentation where it tells you how to create the service file. Okay, that's really handy. What we're going to do is we're going to recopy this command here. Okay, and we're going to add it as a cron job. Okay, so here we are. This is Vim or VI. What we got to do is insert. We're going to say at reboot. Okay, and then we're going to copy the command that we want. And this should actually be /root. And then we're going to escape, write, that's saved, quit. Okay. Now make sure that those are saved in the cron tab. At reboot. Okay. Now, if all goes well, what we can actually do is we're going to reboot the server, and we're going to verify if the Minio comes back up. Okay, so now it's closed, and we're going to start pinging the server to see how quickly it comes back up. It should be pretty quick because Alpine's very small. Okay, it's back. Okay, now we're going to SSH to the server again. Type the password. Okay. ls, we got Minio data. You can actually view the data of Minio. Doesn't show anything probably because it's blocked by the service. But we're gonna just check to see if it's running again. So let's refresh this page. And what do you know? It is. So once you have this all done, you're essentially done setting up Minio and Alpine. It really is just that easy. And what you could do is you can take this Alpine image, and if you just needed like a really quick, say you're doing something like, not really a proxy, but kind of like a relay server, or something that you need to set up where you wanted to share files quickly on a local network, you could basically just take this virtual machine and plop it down into any other KVM, or you can export it as a VMDK object, put it in a VMware scenario, and then you can get like really quick permanent object storage located pretty much anywhere. So it kind of saves you the trouble if like you don't have an environment that's already using Docker to like quickly get a plug and play kind of a virtual image for Minio running, and it's a minuscule image. Like the total size of like this base is, well, like we said, we did the df-h, and you know, after installing the Minio, it's only 590 megabytes. So the total image size of this VM would probably be less than a gig, and you could, you know, plop it into pretty much any environment you want. So hope this was helpful. Relatively quick tutorial, but something that I found useful and I just wanted to share. So as always, thank you very much.